So today we will see about arrays and the functions that we can use with arrays, right? Which are provided in PHP. Okay. So as discussed in one of the earlier examples, we can create array in PHP by using the array function, right? And whatever elements we have to provide or we want to store in the array, those are provided as argument to this array function. Okay, if it is numeric values, we will have to store it sequentially. Similarly, if there are string values, we'll have to specify them in double quotes and store them sequentially. Fine. Then there are three types of arrays or the way we can create arrays. Number one are normal indexed arrays in which we will have numeric values as the index of any array element, right? Like 0, 1, 2, 3, what we generally have. Then associative arrays in which we will be having some named key as the index, right? So instead of using numeric values like 0, 1, 2, we will use some names or some strings which will act as key, right? Now, definitely in these associative arrays, we are going to store elements in the form of key value pairs, right? Since we are identifying every element with the help of some named key, those elements will be stored in a key value format. Okay, we'll see the examples later on. And also we can create multi-dimensional arrays in different programming languages. Here PHP will also support creation of multi-dimensional arrays, and the depth of this multi-dimensional array can be anything, right? So we will use the same array function recursively in order to create uh, arrays into arrays, right? So we'll see further in the examples. Okay. So these are the two ways in which we can create indexed arrays. Now, as I told, in indexed arrays, we will have numeric values as index, right? 0, 1, 2. So while creating an array, here we are creating a array cars, and whatever array is created by the function array that is assigned and that is identified by the name cars, whatever you specify here as array name, right? So since this array is going to store three values, Volvo, BMW and Toyota, so we will be accessing these values with the with their respective index, numeric index, right? So that is one way of creating arrays and accessing them. Another way, we can manually create them. We can manually assign values to the respective indices, like cars of 0, cars of 1, cars of 2, and we can assign values to them. So these are two ways in which we can create the array and assign values to each of the elements. Fine, this is simple. Not to mention separately, even if it is an array name, it is treated as a variable initially, and that is why whenever we use the array name, it has to be the array name should be preceded by a $sign. Okay, fine. Then how do we print the arrays? Simply, if cars is the array that we have created in our PHP script, as you can see over here, the same array is created. So we will use the echo statement to print every element of the array, right? And suppose I want to concatenate some string. So I will use double quotes to put up any static string, and to concatenate that with some another string, I generally use the dot operator in PHP, right? So this dot is a concatenation between this string and the subsequting string, right? So the output, as you can see, the output would be I like Volvo, BMW, and Toyota. Right? This is what the output will be. Okay, that is one way. Now, if we want to count the number of elements present in the array, or the length of the array in short, so we have the count function. We will simply provide the name of the array with the dollar sign definitely as an argument to the count function, and we'll get the uh, number of elements uh, in return to the count function, right? Fine. So this is how we can calculate the length of any array. Fine. Now, now we can definitely access the values one by one, like we have done over here, right? Because we knew that there are only 3 values present in this array, so that so we accessed it using their proper numeric index, right? But here, since if we don't know how many elements are there in our PHP array, so we'll definitely have to loop through that array, right? So again, for that we need to know the length of the array in order to define the terminating condition for the for loop. So we use the count function and we get the length of the array, and we use it as the we use the length in the terminating condition, right? As discussed in the last session, for loop is no different in PHP. It is having a initialization of the counter, the terminating condition using the counter variable, and some unary operator associated with the counter. Fine. Moving ahead, in order to access it, we will definitely have to use the counter variable. And here the counter variable, since it is a variable, so we are using a dollar sign for the counter variable also. So this will print uh, the array elements one below the other, because we are using a break tag also in each iteration, right? So if you want to see the output, we can simply use again the W3 schools editor. Yeah, here. So if you run it, you can see that elements are printed one below the other. Fine. Okay. Then that was all about indexed arrays, right? The next type of arrays is associative arrays. Now, as I told, in case of associative arrays, we will have to use named keys. So instead of numeric index values, we can have some strings as the index values simply. So again, we have 2 ways to create associative arrays. Number one, we will specify the key value pair when we are creating the array. So we have an array called as age, and as arguments to this array function, we have to provide a key value pairs, right? So for Peter, the value is 35, where Ben is the key, the value is 37, and for Joe as the key, we have a value 43, right? So whenever we will access this array with the key Peter, we will get 35 as the value, right? Simple. This was one way of initializing the array. The other way, we are well aware that we can use age of the index Peter, and then we can assign value to it, right? So here we are accessing the array elements, associative array elements, one after the other. And if you try to run it using editor again, let us observe the output. So what we are trying to print over here, we have firstly created an array age, an associative array we have created, and then we are printing a statement using echo. Peter is dash dash years old. So what we are putting into that dash, we are simply accessing the age of Peter. And how do we do that? We will use the array name, and as the index, we will provide the key, right, Peter. In return of this, we will get the value associated with the key Peter, and that is 35. You can see in the output window on the right side, 35 is printed for that. Clear? Okay. Similarly, if we want to loop through the associative arrays, no different way, but one change is that you will observe here we have created the same array, right? And we are now accessing each element of this array, right? Each element of this array, simply because the element residing in this array is a key value pair. So we have to deal with it somewhat differently, right? So we use a for each version of the for loop, and then for each element in this age array, we will get the key value in X, and we'll get the value part in this X underscore value variable. Okay, so two variables, like we have a counter variable for loop. Here there are two variables, counter variables. One is holding the key, and the other one, which we have specified after the arrow, is carrying the value for that key. So whenever we'll access every element or each element from the age array, the value part will be kept over here, and the key part will be kept over here, and the value part will be kept over here. So two variables we require when we use a loop for associative arrays, right? So, and then finally we are simply echoing the key part along with the value part, right? So you can see key is present in $x and the value is present in $x underscore value variable, right? So as an output, you can see on the right hand side, one below the other, the key and the value pairs are getting printed. Simple. Okay. Any doubt by far, anyone? Yes. Okay. Okay, moving ahead, the third type is multidimensional arrays. And as I told, we can create multidimensional arrays with any depth. So the depth can be of 2 layers, 3 layers, 4 layers, whatever you want, right? So in order to create multidimensional arrays, we have to use the arrays function recursively, right? So imagine we have to create this table, right? Such a structure. Table is nothing but, you can imagine this as a matrix, right? So we have to create this multidimensional array or a matrix, for example, right? In that case, how do we use the array function? Normally, since we have to create a array, we will use the array function, and since we have to create a multi-dimensional array, so we will use a array function again recursively inside it, and provide all the values which are to be stored in the inner array. So the first row, whatever we want in the matrix, we will store it. We will mention that row values as arguments to the inner array function, right? So once we create the row, we'll put a comma and then again call the array function and provide the values which are to be inserted in the next row of our matrix, right? Pretty clear? Okay, and the result would be we will be creating such a matrix structure, right? So this is how we can create multidimensional arrays in PHP, right? Okay. Now we have seen the arrays part, but now let us see what all functions can we use with arrays in PHP, right? So there are many functions which are associated with the array. but we are going to see the major ones which are usually used in PHP for arrays, right? Okay, so we'll start with printar. So what printar does, it is simply going to print all the array elements in a standard format, right? In a format which is human readable, right? So if we try to execute, we'll see the code as well. Okay. So what we are doing over here on the left hand side, you can see we have created an array which is having values red, green and blue, and then we are printing it with the help of printar function, right? So what this printar function will do, it will represent the array in a human readable or a standard format. Okay. So here as a output, you can see on the right hand side, you can see that the array is printed in a human readable way. That is, 0th index is having the value red, first index is having the value green, second index is having the value blue, right? Similarly, after the break command, we have created another array which is a uh, I mean, we have created an array using the named keys, right? The second way to create the array, right? So the named keys are A, B, right? And their values are mobile and laptop. So you can see here, instead of 0 and 1, now the keys are A and B, right? Simple, and their values are mobile and laptop respectively. And we have printed the array over here to get this output. Clear? So this is how we can use the printar function. Fine. Next, extract function. So why do we use the extract function? Simply, whenever we have individual variables and we want to form a array, whenever we have a array and we want to form individual variables from that array, right? So in that case, we can use the extract function. So here you can see we have an array whose name is my array, right? And the array is a named key array, right? So it is having a key called as roll number with the value 1, a key element with name and value as Amar, another key element as class, and tcom is the value. So when we use the extract function and provide the array name, then it will extract these keys and create variables with the name of keys, right? So here a variable will be created with the name RNO. Then a variable will be created with the name, and a variable will be created with the name class, right? And since we print it with a break tag in between each of them, we will see that each of the values are printed one below the other, right? If you want, we can simply try it on the editor as well. Right? Yeah, you see that we get on the right hand side, we get the roll number first, then the name, and then the class, right? Pretty simple. Okay. So this is the extract function which we use to create variables from the array keys in case of named key arrays. Next, exactly opposite to the extract function is the compact function. So in case of compact function, we are going to combine a set of variables and form a array out of it, right? So in the example, you can see we have three variables: first name with the value Peter, last name with the value Griffin, and age as a value 41, right? So when we use the compact function and provide these variable names as argument, first name, last name, and age, so it is going to create an array which will have the values Peter, Griffin, and 41. For which keys? For the keys first name, last name, and age. Remember that it will not be a normal array, but it will be a named key array, right? Whose index values will be the variable names that we provide for the compact function. Okay, you can see the output on the right hand side. But whatever array is created, we need to assign a name to that array, right? So that is why the compact function will create an array, and here we are naming that array as details, for example. And then with the printer function, we are printing details array so that we get a readable format of that array, right? Simple. Okay, so this was extract and compact function. In order to create arrays from different variables, we will use the compact function. Okay, functions for sorting now. Naturally, sort function will arrange the elements of the array in ascending order. Here you can see we have a array called as numbers, and we have these elements 4, 6, 2, 22, and 11, right? So when we call the sort function with the array name as argument to the sort function, we will get a sequence of numbers in ascending order, and the sequence will be stored in the same array, that is numbers array, right? Sorted sequence will be stored inside the same array, and if we print that array, we can see that the numbers are getting printed in ascending order, right? Similarly, like sort, we have reverse sort or r sort, r sort function. So it is going to print the given sequence in a descending order. So let us try this code with our editor. We'll see the output. Okay. Okay. You can see that the sequence is sorted, and since we are using print r function to print the array, you can see the array is being printed in the standard format, right? Please observe the index values. Index values are normal starting from 0, right? So this is important. Why these code snippets I am executing and why the output I am showing, because since you are going to appear for a objective exam, you will definitely be given such code snippets and you will be asked to predict the output, right? So you should be very clear about all these things. What will be the index, whether it will be numeric, whether it will be a named key, and all those things, right? So please be very specific when we execute the code. Okay, fine. So this is sort and r sort. Okay, not to forget the output of the r sort. You can see the sequence is arranged in the descending order: 22 followed by 11, 6, 4, and 2. Many other functions associated with sorting you can see over here. A sort. Now what does this a sort means? We are going to arrange the given sequence or the given array in ascending order, but it will be based on the values. Okay, it will be based on the values. And in k sort, we are going to arrange the sequence in ascending order, but it will be based on the keys. Understood? So this is generally it is used in case of associative arrays where we have named keys, right? In that case, it is important to decide whether we have to sort on the basis of value, or we have to sort on basis of the key. So for associative arrays, we use the A sort or K sort functions respectively. Okay, so this is A sort and K sort are going to arrange it in ascending order. But if we want to arrange the associative arrays in descending order, then we will use the AR sort or the KR sort, right? So with AR sort, definitely the associative arrays are going to be arranged in descending order because it is a R sort, but on basis of what? On basis of values. Okay. Similarly, in case of K sort, we are going to arrange the associative arrays in descending order, but on basis of what? On basis of on the keys, right? Fine. So you can try it examples. You can take associative arrays and then use the A sort and K sort, and followed by that AR sort and KR sort. Right? You can try it later. Then is array function. Now this is a Boolean function. Value that we expect in return of this function call is obviously a Boolean value, right? So what do we use? Whether a variable is carrying a array or it is carrying some normal numeric or string value, right? Whether a variable is array or not. In order to check that, we use is array function, right? So whenever the function is having array, or it is a variable which stores an array, then in that case it will return a true or a 1, and otherwise it is going to return us nothing. At times it returns false, but you should also know that at times it will return nothing as well, right? But make sure that the syntax is followed. That means whenever you are going to call the isArray function, you are going to provide the array as the argument, right? Over here we can see. So if we execute it, right? So what we are storing in the first variable A, we are storing hello. Okay. And while echoing, if we use isArray function and provide the variable name, then you can see in the output, since A is not an array, it is a normal variable which carries string value. So it is going to return nothing, right? In case of B, since B is representing an array, when we call the isArray function with B as argument, you can see 1 is being returned and we are printing it in the output, right? Similarly, C is also an array, so you can see 1, and D is a normal string variable, so it is not printing anything. Okay, fine. Again, from objective point of view, this is important. Many other functions which are associated with Boolean return values. So it is int. So as the name suggests, if we pass a variable which carries an integer value, then only in that case it will return true. Otherwise, it will return nothing or false. Another function is integer. Now it is used as a alias function. Another name for the same is int function, right? Both can be used alternatively. Is float, it is going to return true if a variable passed to this function is carrying floating value, and is bool is going to return true if it is having a Boolean value. Is numeric is going to return true if the variable passed to this function is having any numeric value. That means it can be a floating value or an integer value, or we are passing a numeric equivalent of a string, right? Or a numeric string we are passing. In that case also, it will return true. Fine. Okay. And is object, obviously, if the variable is an object, then it will return true. Otherwise, nothing. Fine. Serialize. So when do we use serialize? Generally, you must have heard this term when you studied SDL. Why we use serialization? Whenever we want some data to be converted into a format in which it can be stored, right? So generally, serialization of data will convert that data into sequence of bits, right? It will be a binary data which can be stored in the physical medium, right? So it converts to a sequence of bits which can be used for storage purpose, which can be used for temporary storage like in a memory buffer, right? Or when we have to transmit that converted data across the network, right? So for all these reasons, we will use the serialize function. Fine. So whenever we use the serialize function in PHP, it will convert any value which is passed as argument to the serialize function. It will convert that value or that data structure into sequence of bits or in a storable representation. Okay. So here, if we want to serialize an array, here you can see we are passing a array to the serialize function, right? And the data is stored in this variable data. Which data? The storable representation of the array, right? The storable representation of the array will be kept in this data. And if we echo it, you will see the storable representation. We'll execute it and later you can see, right? So that was serialize. Again, like serialize, we have the unserialized function. Again, we will convert any serialized data back to its original format, right? What was it actual previous to serialization, right? So we can pass the serialized variable as an argument to the unserialized function, and then we can use the var dump function to see the unserialized data. Now what this var dump function does, it gives all the information about the variable that we are passing to it, right? All the information means what is the type of the data, what is the actual data being stored in that variable. All of that information is provided by using the variable dump or var dump function, right? So we'll execute this. See now. So we are doing the serialization, and you can see an array is being serialized, and now whatever is stored in data, that is printed, and you can see on the right hand side what is the storable format or storable representation of an array, right? Again, if we try to unserialize it, so what we are doing, we are unserializing the data, and it is stored in a variable test, and we are dumping it out. So all the information will be dumped out. So what information we are observing? Simply, just a minute. Yeah, we have to put it inside the script part, no? See, you can see the type is shown. I'll put a break over here so that you can read it. See on the right hand side, When we unserialize and when we use the var dump method, you will see what type of data it is, right? So it is an array, and since it is an array, it also shows the size of that array. The size of the array is 3, and then it shows the actual data. What is at the 0th index? It is having a string of size 3. Then at index 1, it is having a string of size 5. And what is that string? It is also giving information related to that, right? String is green. Similarly, at index 2, we have a string of size 4, and that is blue, right? So this is important. How the serialized and unserialized data looks, you should know it, right? Fine.